Welcome to our November 22nd meeting. If we can just please rise and for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Don't have too many comments today. We got a full agenda ahead of us. I do want to welcome Natalie Emerson, who is our newest student board member. And when we get to the student report, we'll have an opportunity to introduce yourself. Okay, thanks. Approval of minutes. Any questions on the minutes? Yes, Jen.
I was not. Oh, never mind. Members present. I was not present.
You were not present. Okay. So we can't. So all those votes we attributed to you, we have to take back. All right. No problem. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead, Lauren.
I think we talked about this at that meeting, and under approve amend minutes of September 27th, page 4, under reopening of school update, revise the first sentence to read Superintendent Joseph. We had caught then that it should say Assistant Superintendent Joseph.
Yeah.
Right?
That's where, which page are you on?
So it's on page 1 of the minutes. Approve amend minutes of September 27th. The amendment, they erroneously said Superintendent Joseph,
Right.
and they should read Assistant Superintendent Joseph. That was the amendment.
Oh, to read. Right. So it's the same thing. Okay.
And then I also, I think I had suggested, this is a little confusing on the home test, and maybe this can all be looked at after the meeting, but it said, Joseph reported that we can't accept clinical tests, but the rapid or PCR tests are now available. My amendment was that we can't accept home tests,
Right.
but the rapid or PCR done clinically
Right. Okay.
are allowable. That was it.
Anything else from anybody?
Lou,
Yes.
this is Steve. I just like the record to reflect that I guess Anita and I are participating remotely
Yes. Sorry. Yep.
in this meeting.
Exactly. Yes. Steve and Anita are part of the meeting. So if we have them in the minutes that they attended, they did, even if they did virtually. So thanks, Steve, and welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Can we get a motion for the amended minutes? Okay, Lorna, and second, Bill. Okay, all in favor?
All right.
And Steve, yeah, and Anita? If Anita's there? Maybe she's not on yet. Okay, well, that passes. And let's see. Any adjustments to the agenda? No. 5.0, no? Okay. 6.0, public session. So this opportunity for anyone in the audience, public would like to step up to the mic up front. Please give us your name and which town you're from, and you can comment on the agenda or some other issue.
Sure. Hi, my name's Thomas Sarbanis. I'm from Phippsburg. I have 5 children in the school system here. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm just here to talk about more specifically masking while in athletics, but masking in general. Just advocating for a more open program to have a ability of a student, and maybe in consultation with their doctor, or more importantly, parents, to have the ability for the student to go maskless for various reasons. So it's kind of frustrating looking at the evidence out there. There's not that many studies done of comprehensively following regimens of athletics with people masking while wearing or people masking while undergoing athletic competitions or training for periods of time. So just what I found on the National Institute of Health, one was basically a physiological hypothesis, and they were talking about the pathophysiology of wearing a mask while undergoing, physical exertion. And it makes sense if you restrict the body to breathe on exhalation and inhalation, there's a resistance there, and then the body needs to compensate for that. Then the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles will work that much harder, and it's similar, and it's not that much different from COPD. And the ability to monitor this is hard, because what they've done with studies is they have athletes go out and they say there's not much difference, but they do, a treadmill exercise, and then they mask and do a treadmill exercise. Then they look at blood gases and look at oxygen saturation. They say there's not that much difference, so it must be safe. But there's, like I said, there's no long-term studies. So a couple of the studies on National Institute of Health. One is called Behind the Mask, Rethinking the Use of Face Masks While Exercising. And they cite here that it is important to outline the previously referred studies addressing the influence of face masks while exercising, the consequence of its application during a single bout of exercise. It follows that these likely arise during longer training regimen. To our knowledge, studies examining tolerance and possible adaptations to wearing a face mask while exercising over a longer period of time have not been published yet. Knowing the adaptive abilities of the human body, proper adjustments will certainly occur, but the potential for achieving peak performance will likely be hindered. The next study, it's called Masked Education, the benefits and burdens of wearing face masks in schools during Corona pandemic. And this is the one where I feel, is there a time limit here? Okay, yeah, I can. Sure. Well, this one focuses with facial recognition. When people truly smile, it engages the crow's feet, and their brows furrow, almost looking like a frown. So when students are trying to, empathetically bond with their teacher or their fellow students, facial recognition can be missed, or a smile can be taken as a frown. But this is the big one: the psychological, biological, and immunological risks for children and pupils make long-term wearing of mouth masks difficult to maintain. This is a British medical journal. And in this one, the World Health Organization recommended masks. They didn't take into account all ages of the cohort. They didn't take into account adolescents and children. And so they further state that, generally COVID disease in children and youth is mild or asymptomatic. What the exception to this is, I'll get to this and I'll wrap it up, is comorbidities, right? And so, they said basically face masks at school, a slippery slope from virus protection to mental breakdown. And the problem with masking is the contamination of the mask on the exterior and interior. When we exhale bacteria. They can build up, mask can get soiled, and then also contamination from hands to the mask on a saturated mask can breed bacteria. And furthermore, exercising while having a saturated mask, the mask become ineffective, and also that can lead to greater size droplets being expelled during physical exertion. And just considering the risk to students and their health while exercising with masks on, it would just be prudent to allow for an opt-out procedure. I'll wrap it up. I mean, we don't see professional athletes, the NBA aren't wearing masks running up and down the court. And basically, I'll wrap it up. This one last paragraph is the psychological effect of masking. We all know, we put a mask on, we kind of feel claustrophobic and anxious. And they're reporting here that granted, it's a little bit older cohort, but they said the increase of anxiety and depression has increased by 63% in the ages of 18 to 24, with these people unfortunately considering suicide, needing to go on medication, get therapy because of the effects psychologically and physiologically of wearing masks. So thank you for taking my statement. I appreciate it. And please be open-minded to allowing students to breathe freely. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Any other public statements?
My name's Julie and I'm from Bath. And I didn't really plan on speaking here tonight, so I didn't prepare anything, but I guess just a few things that I want to say is that everything he said. And then I've not been able to come to a lot of school board meetings because I used to work on Monday nights, but now that I lost my job because of the vaccine mandate, I no longer work Monday nights, so I'll try to attend more school board meetings. And so again, with the masks, and I'm not going to go into a whole thing because we all know it's pointless for the kids when they're 5 and 6 and they're dropping their mask and they're spitting in their mask and they're wiping the nose with their mask and their mask is falling down and they're touching it. It's not doing any good. We all have got to know that it's not doing any good. And like you said about the kids that they have to wear masks in the sports teams, but we don't see anybody on TV wearing masks when they're playing sports. So I don't know why kids have to, when kids are at a very low risk of getting COVID to begin with. That's literally proven everywhere. I do feel super frustrated because I have friends that live in other communities and go to their school board meetings and they, plead and beg and cry and nothing changes. I do feel like nothing's going to change here. I feel like, I know I asked the superintendent last week for some, the funding for the paperwork to break down, because I have seen where other school boards or schools are having, not accepting, but part of the funding is for following certain mandates and things like that. And I have asked superintendent to get me the funding breakdown so I can see if I can make anything out of that. So we'll see if I get that. And then, but yeah, just super frustrated. A lot of us parents are really frustrated because we come here or we stand here or we speak and I 100% genuinely feel like it goes nowhere. It goes nowhere. And I've been told, oh, Julie, run for school board and maybe you can make a difference there. But I don't have a chance in hell of ever getting on the school board in this liberal town being a conservative. Not a chance in hell. So I'm not even gonna waste my time, to be honest with you. So again, feeling super frustrated why my little 6-year-old grandson has to go and with a stupid mask that's all day that he doesn't need to wear, and why my teenager has to have a mask on all day that she doesn't need to wear. These things are all silly, and we genuinely all feel like we're wasting our time 100% because really feel like none of you really give a shit about our kids.
Great, thanks for your comment. And next.
Hi,
Yeah.
my name's Maureen Craney and I live in West Bath, and I just wanted to come up and just say thank you. I had sent an email about a month ago concerning the restrooms at McMahon, and I just want to thank everybody for their response and their support. And I guess I also just want to, encourage and hope that a relationship with the city of Bath continues and that we kind of see this through, make sure that it happens for our student athletes. And again, just, appreciative of the responses that I did receive and looking forward to seeing that happen. I know it's not, there's two parties, two different things that are involved, but I just, hope that we all can kind of see this through, make sure there's follow through and that it, does happen. And yeah, so thank you.
Thank you. And any other public? And Julie, if you want to stay, we do require that you have a mask in the building.
No, well, then I'm not staying.
Okay.
And stupid, and you're all-
Well, you can
and you're all-
watch your language. It's so, Julie, it's okay.
I want that paper on the budget too.
All right. Well, do ask that people use appropriate language, but it's harder to get your point across when you don't do that. All right. So no other individuals sitting in the, okay. We'll move on to committee reports. And do we have
Katie, are you out
Katie
there?
online?
Sorry, I was just unmuting. I'm here. Good
Okay.
evening, everybody. So my report will just be really quick this evening in terms of what we've done in the last month on curriculum, assessment, and instruction. We did have the November Professional Development Day, and on that day, grades 6 through 12 worked in departments on aligning their curriculum and assessments to their proficiency standards and report cards. And grades K through 5 did work with Linkit, which is our database company. And they have essentially created a new way for us to track where students are struggling and where they're doing well. So we have a better access to creating and also ensuring progress on response to intervention goals. So that was really exciting. In terms of what's coming up for PD, we will have our final 5th professional development day, not until March. And so there's a lot of work that will be happening on late start Wednesdays. One thing I did want to mention is that we continue to have our Bright Space work time on some of the late starts that will weave in throughout the year. And Dean and his crew will be presenting on Brightspace at our next board meeting to share a little bit more about updates on that and how things have been going. So that's really all I have in terms of what all of the teachers have been working on for right now. Any questions?
Any questions from any of the board? Any of you who are online there? I don't know, is Anita? Anita or Steve, you have any questions? No, none. Thank you, Katie.
Sure.
All right. So next, Natalie, welcome as being our new student board member. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, my name is Natalie Emerson. I'm the new student board representative. I'm a junior at Morse. I went to Woolwich. I'm a 3-season athlete, and I'm in mostly AP and honors classes. As far as a report, I didn't have anything prepared initially, but today is the first day of the winter sports season. And this weekend we had Mohiba, which I think went quite successfully. So I think we're all looking forward to Thanksgiving break as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks, Natalie, and welcome. Superintendent's report. Patrick?
Yeah, just a couple updates. As you know, parent-teacher conferences are being held this week, mostly done virtually. We also provided the option, if the parents wanted it in person, we certainly could make that possible. At Phippsburg, one thing that I wanted just to let you know that we have is CELT is allowing us to use a hydroponic, self-watering, self-fertilizing farm stand that's located in one of our classrooms, our special ed classroom at Phippsburg. And 2 of our teachers took the lead with that and again, volunteered to lead this project. And we chose lettuce first and growing very quickly to the point where we're using it. Anna's using it in the cafeteria for our hot lunch program. So it's really been very interesting for the students to come in and see this. And it's very low maintenance and very, so to speak, fruitful on our end. So we're going to try to see if we can get that into our other elementary schools as well, because it's a very good educational piece. Bath Culinary Arts Program is in the process. Well, they're pretty much done now, but made over 300 pies for Thanksgiving for families. And also they were the winners of the 360 contest that we had, Halloween breakfast test competition that we had here. You saw in the backup probably from Justin is our ed techs had a very good professional development opportunity last week, and it had to do with providing an overview of the principles of resilience and the factors that promote resilience in the children. And like to thank Access Health and Midcoast Hospital for their support and also their funding of that professional development. And then in January, we'll be providing PD and some training to take care of ourselves, so to speak, the teachers and the ed techs, with a person that will speak on the strategies for stressing better and building resilience in us as adults. And then the ECF grant that Dean talked to you about earlier this year, we have approximately 55 families who have requested the hotspots that we received funds for. And so I think they're on their way now, right, Dean? Hotspots will be here soon, and we'll disperse those to the families. And then lastly, I just would like to thank our staff for being incredibly flexible, professional, and responsive during these times. As you know, it's very challenging right now, and for them to have to adjust and pivot on a dime, and that's from ed techs to custodians to food service to everybody. It's been a team effort, and that's it.
I just have a question. Is the hotspots, is this all through, is that Comcast?
Dean, do you want to
I was
provide a
just
little
curious
more
where
information?
I didn't know if that was a new thing, or I know it's an expansion, but I just didn't know if it's.
The hotspots are actually cellular data. So those are through Verizon.
Oh.
And that's basically paid for through the ECF grant, which is FCC funded. So families who had a need that their students at home could not engage fully in remote learning applied for that. And we were able to get that approved.
That's great. Thank you.
Yep, certainly.
All right. Sorry, go ahead.
Patrick, I don't know where this falls in the agenda because I've always kind of, but is there a specific place when we have questions about the board reports that were sent in the packets that we would ask those? Should there be a space on our agenda for that? I don't really know. Is it old business, new business?
I mean, you can ask it. I mean, I guess maybe, this would be a good time because I took bits and pieces out of
Yeah.
Good news.
I was really interested in Justin's special ed report and the numbers that he was sending to us. And one of the things I wanted to ask was that if we could get a breakdown of not just the number of special ed identified students, but the percentage of the total school body, whatever it is, in terms of the age bracket or the school they're in. I think that would be helpful to try to see how these numbers compare, what kind of percentage has been identified. And the other question I had was, just back in my old days working in the classrooms, this category of identification called OHI or other health impairment, it really would be very interesting for me, or just to see how we're allocating our resources. If within that category, is there any way to break it down between, and I saw the definition, is there any way to break it down between, is this a physical issue, a cognitive issue, or a behavioral issue? I mean, it kind of touches on all three of those in the definition. And if I remember correctly, back in the day, it was kind of a large bucket where sometimes if a student or a parent didn't want a specific identification, or we couldn't really kind of pin it on one provided area, that it was clumped into this kind of generic, and it's quite a high number. And so if it's going to be at this level, I was wondering if we could have any more metrics on it.
And Justin's on, I don't have Justin on tonight. So,
okay.
But I can follow up on these and get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions for Patrick? Steve or Anita?
Not for me, no, thanks.
Okay. Great. Then we'll go to financial report from Deb.
Hello, everybody. So I just need to jump back on Patrick's conversation about the greenhouse down at Pittsburgh. Let's try some strawberries. We're missing those from Swango.
That's right.
All right. So tonight in your packet, we're looking at the month of October. So we've spent about $12.5 million out of our $38 million budget. So that's 32%. Last year, we spent about 30.77 at this point in time, so we are spending at about the same rate as we were last year. Everything so far, I'm keeping my eyes on things. There's a few reports that I'm working on this month that I should be able to share with you next month. And that's budget versus the actual for tuition and also for some of these salaries. And next month you should see the encumbered salaries. The one place that we'll be keeping our eyes on this year is transportation, because we expect that probably, well, most likely will go over compared to what we had budgeted. As far as revenue, we're at 39%, same as last year. And for our federal funds, we're spending about, with just basically, once you see the encumbered salaries for the ESSER 2, then we'll really get a good feeling of where we're at. The ARP funds, we just started spending this month on some of the budgeted items that Patrick has planned in that grant. And on a good note, happy note here, we've made the final debt service payment today for Bath Middle School.
Oh, wow.
So that is complete. That was the refunded amount through the city of Bath. That was a 10-year debt service. So that is done. And we received $14,648 from MEMIC, which is our workers' comp company. And that was a dividend that they send out. This is the first one that we've received, but evidently they send these out every year to policyholders for keeping our workers' comp rates down.
Oh, wow.
That's it.
Great. Thank you. Are there any questions for Deb?
Yeah, Deb, this is Steve. What might be the reason for the transportation overrun of costs?
Well, the price that came in from First Student this year is about $84,000 higher than what we had budgeted last year for Bath Bus. And also the special ed transportation is higher than what we had anticipated. We have about 7 vans going different locations. I know Justin and Kim are working on trying to consolidate some of those runs and maybe using some different resources to keep those costs down. So it's kind of a combination between the contract and the special ed transportation.
Yeah, but
out of district.
the contract costs were known, I guess, right? I mean, they might be higher, but there's been no adjustments or requests made by First Student because of driver shortages or fuel cost. I mean, we pay for fuel separately, I guess, right?
Right, we do.
Yeah.
But no, there hasn't been any difference. It's just one of those things that, I just thought that, we need to keep our eyes on,
Okay.
Throughout the other part of the budget, but nothing's changed. They've been able to provide transportation where, like I said to them, we're not on the news for not being able to provide it at this point. So that's a good thing.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
Great. Any other questions? Thanks, Deb.
Okay.
All right, we're moving on to 10.0, old business. Update on health and safety protocols, including athletics. Patrick.
Yeah, we won't touch on the athletics on this one. I think you got another.
Was that
you should've-
separate?
Yeah,
Oh,
it
that's
is separate.
down-
Yeah,
okay,
and
sorry.
so hopefully you got a different agenda. But anyway,
No, that's what I
I'm just
got.
going to go through some numbers and percentages, just so you have the most updated ones. First, I'll just start with thanking some people. First is Katie, our nurses, our office staff who has to coordinate, and then the parents and also the students. And we had over 100, younger children come in and get their vaccine, their first dose last Friday here at the high school. And also, again, Midcoast Hospital was great. They provided all of the nursing staff. And so it went very smoothly. And again, over 100 students came in, and some with their parents, some just on a bus, and very, very brave to come in and do that. So staff vaccine numbers that we submitted to the state for November was BMS 82%, Bath Tech 81, Central Office 79, Dyke Newell 81, Fisher Mitchell 79, Morse 93, Pittsburgh 100, and Woolwich 90. And the student vaccination, I mean, please realize our nursing staff is just overwhelmed. And so usually every other month, I try to ask them for updated student vaccination. So right now, I mean, BMS is probably 58 to 60%, Bath Tech 60%, Morse is at 65%, and Woolwich is 56 to 58%. So the positive cases and quarantines, as people know, we are, like other school districts in this area and across the state, we have seen an uptick. So from November 1st until last Thursday, we had positive cases. So again, November 1st to last Thursday at BMS, we had 11 positive cases, resulting in 35 quarantines. 5 positive cases at Dyke Newell, 25 quarantines. 3 positive cases at Fisher Mitchell with 2 quarantines. 8 here at the high school in Bath Tech, and resulting in 8 quarantines. 2 positive cases at Pittsburgh, resulting in 6 quarantines, and 10 at Woolwich, resulting in 15 quarantines. So obviously we had more positive cases over the weekend, and we haven't factored those in yet. And then just the outbreak status piece, again, that is 3 positive cases in a 14-day period from different households confirmed by PCR tests. So again, I just want people to know that, I mean, the safety of our students and staff are of the utmost importance to us. And we did reach out to our CDC representative and Dr. Hanna. We consulted with them, and it was felt, again, there's no perfect formula for this, but that the best thing to do was to have our students continue in school wearing masks, practicing good hand hygiene, the spacing, and continuing to encourage vaccination and pool testing. And it allows to create an environment that we feel is as safe as possible, and one that is relatively lower risk than if our students were not in school and someplace else, that unknown piece. And so again, also keeping in mind, the academic piece, the social emotional, and the nutritional piece that our school district offers students as well. So I know there's a level of concern, and rightfully so, and we're doing all we can to, to continue to be as proactive, as possible. Katie, did you want to just weigh in on the pool testing percentages or how that's going in general? And I will say the state is not offering pool testing this week. We put that in our letter that went out today about the Woolwich positive cases, and I don't believe that they will be offering it possibly the week before the Christmas holiday as well. Katie?
Yeah, thank you. The state does determine when the pool testing is happening. That's not a choice we're allowed to make. In terms of the percentages, they weren't significant enough to create a whole new chart for you. But from the last time I gave it to you, each of the buildings had anywhere from 5 to 10 new signups for pool testing, even at some of our smaller schools. And so it's clear that from what's going on in the environment in our buildings, and also we do get signups when families get quarantined and realize that there was a way for them to potentially not have had to do that. And so often many of the families who sign up after the fact are those that have ended up needing to stay home. And so it's anywhere from 5 to 10 in each of the building is what I counted.
Okay. Thank you, Katie.
Sure.
All right, anything else? Any questions? A lot of statistics, a lot of numbers. Any questions or concerns? Lorna?
First of all, I just want to say thank you for keeping up on those statistics and that data for us. I think back in late August, we had said that we would just like to hear how we're doing in all those areas, and so that's really appreciative. And while I know that tonight, especially being faced with all these outbreaks and cases, it's status quo. I just hope that by our January meeting, after over a month of the littles being able to be vaccinated and maybe some better news on therapeutics, we can start talking more about collectively about when the masks either come off or what other layers there are. And again, I'm not suggesting something that's ill planned, but I just don't want to lose sight of it. I know other states, I think New Pennsylvania is looking at hopefully a January date once the holidays are over. And so I appreciate the data, and I just hope we can keep talking about how everything is looking at every meeting, and maybe have Dr. Hannah come back. But that's it. I appreciate the data, and hopefully we can just have more of a discussion maybe in January on how things are looking.
No, I think that makes sense. It's a tough time to talk about it because it's, a little sensitive right now. At the same time, within the state of Maine, there's conversations starting to happen that we've been involved with about what is the vaccination rate at a certain school for staff and students that might trigger that, as well as what is the case rate for a building, and and having certain population might be required to mask if they're in, if they're a close contact versus, so just looking at some possible ways of, again, trying to make some changes when the timing is right. So.
Okay. Jennifer, did you have? No, I just saw yours. Okay. Great. Let's move on to 10.2. Second reading of board policy, GBIA, staff participation in political activities. Actually, we have what, 4 of these, right? Well, no, the energy contract is different. We have 3 policies. The second reading of board policy JKAA and JKAAR, use of physical restraint and seclusion, and second reading of board policy JJIAB, extracurricular activity participation regulation. This is our second ones on this. Are there any major questions from any of these? We can take them one at a time if there are. Go ahead, Lorna.
So just again for clarification, Patrick, and I think Jamie and Anita, at the policy committee meeting, because remember after the last meeting, I had some confusion on how the GBIA read and the intent of it, staff participation in political activities. And so I went to the committee, and I thought, because in my copy, we had struck on the second page where it says, nothing in this policy shall preclude the discussion of political or controversial issues or current events or exposure of mature students. I thought we had struck or exposure of mature students. And it's still there. So I don't, if someone could fill me in what happened after the meeting or remind me. Mine was that mature students, I thought that was pretty subjective and vague. First one.
I do remember discussion around how that is somewhat subjective on being able to determine mature student.
It just seemed so, I think at the time I was just a little concerned on handpicking on who's qualified. And again, I'm sure that's not the intent of it, but I felt that it could narrow down, selectively narrow down who, as a student, is considered mature enough to participate in these. Maybe it means grade level, I don't know. But I just thought, I had a line through it, I thought we had struck it. So I'm just trying to.
I don't think there was no other discussion about it. But I remember it coming up. Really up to the board, if you want to strike mature, just leave students, candidates, and candidates, they're going to be, I'm assuming middle school, probably through high school.
Right, that would seem.
Age. So, the intent here, I don't believe that any staff would say, you're an eighth grader, I just don't feel you're mature enough to handle this. I think it was probably more of kind of again, older grade level.
Mature meaning older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, if we strike mature, it doesn't, I don't think it is going to change how we implement this.
How you discern. Okay.
Okay.
So do we need a motion for that, or can we just?
I think we just approve it with that amendment.
Okay. Are there any other, so we'll take them one at a time then. So for GBIA, are there any other, we're talking about striking mature and leaving the rest, and are there any other questions on this particular policy? If not, then can I hear a motion with that correction
I'll make a motion for the amendment, or the correction.
that we accept on with that?
We accept them with mature. Struck from the language.
Okay, how about a second? Jen? So all those in favor?
Aye.
Steve
Aye.
and Anita?
Aye.
Thank you. It passes unanimously. Okay. Let's look at the second one, which is the use of physical restraint and seclusion. That's JKAA and JKAAR, right? Got mine out of order here. Any questions on those policies? There it is. None. Okay, can we take the two together? Can I get a motion to pass? Bill? Second? Lorna, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anita?
Aye.
Okay, that passes as well. Thank you. And the last one here, JJIAB, extracurricular activity participation regulation. Any questions on this one or a motion to pass?
Did anyone make it? I'll make a motion to pass.
Okay, motion made by Lorna and Jamie second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, so that takes care of those 4 policies. Next, we have the revision energy contract 10.5. Patrick?
Damien, is that everybody that's on right now? Okay, so if you don't mind, Lou,
Yeah.
if we went down to 11.3, I could give an overview of that, because I told
Okay,
our
that's
revision
fine.
people 6:45, and so
Are
they
we
should,
early?
well,
It's just
we're only a couple
6:45.
minutes,
All right,
but-
well, let's do, sure, 11.3, the ESSER.
is that all right with everybody?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
So just to give a quick overview, again, we submit this grant application and we can still revise it. This is $4 million that we have until 2024 to spend. And so I just wanted to give the board an overview of what the grant application looks like right now, and know that, again, there'll be some modifications and I'll keep you updated on that. But the first one is extended school day and really tutoring and credit recovery. So this is more geared towards, grades 6 through 12, and includes funds for staffing, supplies, and also transportation if we can pull it off, like late buses. But again, we'd have to work with First Student to make sure that they have, buses that can make that work with, athletics and everything else that's going on. Summer programming, academic intervention, and also non-academic activities would be part of this. And again, staffing, transportation, food, supplies, equipment to get more students involved in summer programming. Right now we have the possibility, we still need to have more conversation about this, about looking into expanding our pre-K to be from part-time to full-time, and looking at increasing salary, benefits, supplies, and possibly transportation to go from a half-day to a full-day program. And then ventilation, air quality. This includes the projects, the board's aware of this, of the Dyke Newell Boiler Project and the Central Air Project at Woolwich. Buildings and grounds. This includes a variety of funds, but one is to replace the Phippsburg roof, but also bottle filling stations, which are going in all our schools right now, outdoor classrooms, and also some outdoor recreational and fitness equipment. Response to intervention. The plan is to hire an RTI director, 2 instructional coaches, and a tech integrator for the elementary level. We have some money in there for PPE in case we continue to need it. To maintain the current staffing that we have right now, we have a fair amount of additional staffing right now to be able to accommodate spacing for our students and staff, but also to provide intervention and work with our students. And then last thing we have is mental health support, and these funds allow us to contract with some additional social workers in the district. It could be with a company, but it also could be a social worker that we hire as well. So again, we have this money only until 2024, and so we can't predict whether we're going to need the current staffing that we have now for next year, that we have it built for that. So if that happens, we're in good shape. But if we need it for the following year, then we're going to have to rework some of these things, as an example. And we are very aware that some of these projects that we have in here include staffing. And we've been very upfront with the principals, and when we go through a hiring process, very upfront that these could be very well gone in 2024. And so again, with the pre-K, if we did that, then parents may have that benefit for 23 and 24, but it may go away. And so the board's job with the administrative team and our teaching staff is to prioritize these things and see which ones are the highest priority to keep in our budget if we can afford to. So again, I just wanted to give you an overview. We'll put some form of what I gave you probably into a chart and put it on our website so that everybody can see kind of the big buckets that we're putting this into. And staff have been helpful, principals and teachers and even ed techs have been helpful to provide some ideas. And again, sometimes ideas will come up over the next year or two that are good ideas to help our students.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Any questions? Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
Patrick, the roof at Phippsburg isn't Phippsburg one of the schools that are slated for replacement? No, they're not on the replacement list. Okay,
No.
sorry.
The only
It's
ones-
Dyke Newell and Fisher.
Dyke
Mitchell.
Newell and Fisher Mitchell are on a list that will be,
Right.
will be revisited and hopefully moved up a little bit, but no, Phippsburg's not.
Okay, thank you.
And get that story going, Jen. Just teasing. Any other questions on the list? No? No, it sounds like quite a comprehensive list. So Patrick, you were saying you're going to put all that in a chart so everyone can see it. And then, like you said, it would be a matter of prioritizing. Some of this stuff is kind of, you pay for it and it's done, but the ongoing stuff like pre-K or some other staffing, that would be the real discussion about what stays on beyond 24 or not. Okay. All right. Thank you. Are you ready to go back to, do we have people online now? Or not?
Yeah, Agar and Andrew are on the line.
Okay.
And so I wasn't sure exactly how you want to go about this. I tried to include in your packet the answers to the questions that were asked, and then, an updated contract that had red lines through it so you could see the differences from last time. And then the motion is in there. You don't have to, if someone feels they can make a motion tonight, you don't need to read the whole thing. It's just the top part. So the facilities is met again, just to kind of go through the list of questions and to, just to kind of process things a little bit more. And so, Bill, do you want to add anything else? Do you want to add anything?
I haven't anything to add.
No, okay, that's fine.
I advocated that we delay this vote for at least a month, give all of the board an opportunity to ask the questions that they had about this very complex proposal. They did, we responded, and if there are any others, we have people on board tonight that can answer those questions. So that's, I'm prepared to go forward, as was the committee.
So, I mean, Lou, you can open it up to questions.
Yeah, I was just
and
gonna
Audrey
say,
and Andrew
so
are
we,
on,
you know,
so-
you've got the packet, we've had the conversations and, but Aga and Andrew are both online. Thanks for being here, both of you. So let's open it up to questions. Go ahead, Jennifer.
And I apologize, I wasn't here for the last meeting, so this may be redundant, but Exhibit 1, Basic Terms and Conditions, bottom of the page says 1 of 22. There were red lines and changes made to the chart that's included, and I just was wondering if someone could just give me a quick overview on those changes. The changes were the estimated purchaser percentage kilowatt hour, and it looks like they've gone down.
Yes,
Exhibit
that's-
1, Basic Terms
Yes,
and
that's correct.
Conditions.
We did reduce between the two drafts of the contract, the number of kilowatt hours.
I'm
Or
sorry.
was it increase?
I'm sorry, can you speak up? We didn't hear that, so go ahead.
I
Troy.
guess they're increased, excuse me, yes.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah. So we did increase the number of kilowatt hours just based on some additional billing information that Pat and his office provided.
Other questions? And Steve and Anita, if you, go ahead, Steve.
No, I don't have questions. I attended the Facilities Committee meeting. I think presentations and discussion we had at the board level last month were, you know, were pretty effective in terms of moving me from perhaps a neutral to being supportive of the project. I mean, we are facing with the announcement from the Public Utilities Commission and the two utility providers that our supply costs are going up. And I did confirm, well, we did have some discussion of that with Dave. I think it's even more compelling that we look for savings where we can find them in terms of our electric bill. And this does provide savings. There doesn't appear to be too much on the downside. If anything on the downside, I mean, you know, we're not putting any money into this. We're just taking advantage of a window that might close on us in the near future to get in on these solar farms. So I'm supportive of it.
Thanks, Steve. Other comments? Lorna?
Were you talking, Dave? I was just going to say, I noticed a typo in my note, and no wonder it was confusing. One of my questions was, this is a 20-year contract, but it's 21 to 22 before we see savings. That isn't what I meant to say. What I meant is, if the project isn't actually built for one, or goes online, for 1 to possibly 2 years, I was looking at it as kind of more than a 20-year contract technically. But again, I just wanted to point out that I see now why that was confusing. I didn't mean it was 22 years before we saw savings. It's just that it's a little bit longer than 20 years if the project doesn't come online for a year or two.
So is it 20 years from when it comes online? Okay.
That's right.
Yeah, and if I may just clarify one point, the contract term is 20 years. And the reason for that is that projects that enter this new net energy billing program will have access to that program and be grandfathered under it for a period of 20 years upon the date of the operation date of the system. And so at the end of 20 years, the value of the net energy billing credit may be subjected to a different calculation as to what its value is. And so that's why the term is 20 years from the date of activation of the system.
Okay. Bill, did you have? I don't know. Any other questions or concerns, comments? How are folks feeling? Is this something we feel we can vote on tonight? Okay, Bill, do you want to?
This is the only motion up at the top of the page? Seems so brief for 20 years.
That's the irony.
My glasses down. I move that the vote entitled "Vote to Authorize the Purchase of Net Energy Billing Credits" be adopted in form presented to this meeting.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Steve will second. Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll put it to a. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, one of the reasons I was neutral on this is I see this, I see part of this as an educational opportunity to understand solar for our students, and I was hopeful at one point that we would be able to create an array, on our site or in a nearby location that might serve as a field, for field visits for kids, and again, use it as an educational tool as well as an opportunity to derive some savings. And I think after our discussion at the last facilities meeting, I think I understand that we're not necessarily precluded from a further expansion into solar for our district. And we could still realize some of those educational benefits of having solar on site for students to see, to understand the engineering, and to experience in a very direct way the value of renewable resources in our electrical supply system. So I think that opportunity is not precluded here, and I'm glad for the board's support. So that's it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we can take credit as a district of moving towards an environmentally friendly world.
Yes.
Kind of a global kind of issue, but it's real. We'll save some fossil fuels and carbon emissions as a result of solar energy, and we're joining the club.
Great. Yeah. Well said. Thank you. So I'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of entering the contract based on the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and it passes unanimously. Thank you all. And thank you, Aga. Thank you, Andrew, for all of your help with this. All right.
You're very welcome. Have a good evening.
Yeah,
Thank you,
all.
Aga.
Thank you all so much for your careful attention to this matter. And yeah, thanks for moving forward.
Yep. Now the real work begins. All right. Thanks. Okay, so we got that, took care of that. We are now moving on to 11.1 under new business, recommendations for winter athletics. Nate?
Yeah, Nate's here and he's going to give you an overview and answer any questions you might have.
Great.
Good evening, everybody. Today we started our winter athletics season, so it's just fantastic to have everybody here under the same roof, really for the first time with basketball, wrestling, indoor track will start tomorrow, and unfortunately, cheering's at Bath Middle School, but they'll soon be over here. So it's just really good to see everybody under the same roof. So as we go into the winter season, we do have some business to attend to in terms of what the expectations will be for our athletes, spectators, concessions, etc. As far as masking goes, I think this has been discussed at length, but we are going to go with universal. We propose to go with the universal masking requirement, which is in line with what the MPA has recommended. The MPA Sports Medicine Committee. It's consistent with the current Maine CDC guidelines, which we all know. And it's also something Dr. Hanna supports as well. So that'd be masking for athletes, spectators, boosters, really anybody in the building at any given time. Just to talk about the swimming facility, so the Bath YMCA, that's where we swim, as we all know. However, they do have some different requirements, but we would recommend, and what I'm recommending now is that swimming and our swim team and our coaches do follow under the RSU1 guidelines. So recommending masking for them, coaches, officials, etc. Wrestling, it was recommended at one point that all wrestlers are vaccinated. However, the MPA did go back on that. So what the MPA now recommends is all wrestlers are masked at all times during matches, which would include coaches, spectators, etc. As far as spectators go, I'm recommending here tonight that we do allow home and away spectators at all of our athletic events. I'd like to start by opening the doors to everybody, not necessarily filling to the capacity, but not having a cap at the same time. So we'd like to start with that and then certainly reserve the right to scale back if and when needed, if there became an issue. And then concessions, I'd like to offer concessions as well, but not allowing any food or drink in the gym, in any one of our gyms or facilities. We'll keep the concessions out in the lobby area. That's where people can sit, unmask, eat popcorn, drink water, sodas, whatever it might be, but they just can't bring that into the gym. Just a few more things. Locker rooms, the ability to use locker rooms I think is vital. We were able to successfully navigate that during our football season. Our football team did a great job of keeping the time limit that our kids and coaches were in the locker room to under 15 minutes. I put that same expectation on our winter sports teams as well. So those are the recommendations that I have here tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Great. Are there I have some, but if there's some initial questions from anybody? Go ahead, Jamie.
Thank you very much for all that information. And I was wondering if you knew of what competing teams that Morse will be, or I should say RSU1 will be competing against, are doing. And then the second question that I have is, I do share a concern about people who are actively running for long amounts of time, masking, or I think about someone who's wrestling and how taxing that is without a mask. And so I wondered, was there any sort of discussion to couple maybe pooled testing, having a requirement that athletes participate in pooled testing to be able to at least remove a mask during that time of competition that could then be put back on when they are not competing?
Sure. So to answer your first question, we do have a pretty good idea of what most of the schools are doing that we'll be competing against. It's about 50-50 in terms of requiring masking and not. However, there is a general agreement, if you will, that if we're going to a school that's not requiring masking, they will be required to mask. So it'll be the more stringent requirement that's followed. And I do have a document, that's shared within our conference. Some of the schools that we're playing or participating against that's outside of our conference, I'll just have to gather that information before playing against them. As far as your second question goes, we haven't had that discussion around pool testing for athletes. I know that some schools are looking at that. One school in particular has decided that I'm aware of, that has decided to go that route, but we haven't had that discussion here at the RSU.
I know one in Central Maine is requiring pool testing, but also requiring masks at the same time. And so I think, that discussion, sometimes the requirement of vaccines and the requirement of pool testing has brought out some concerns from families that if you require that, then then our percentages may go down as far as participation goes.
But isn't it, I mean, I'm not saying it has to be vaccinations, but the pool testing, I mean, it's kind of a choice. I mean, you can't have everything you want. So if you don't want to wear a mask, you pool test. I mean, it's just that would be, I mean, what would it take to actually have this kind of discussion? Because I mean, I understand, well, as Lorna had said before, I mean, we do need to start having the conversation. Right now, we're in, a crisis. There's a outbreak, but that's not going to last forever. Hopefully, with all these, more vaccinations and better medicine by January, maybe, we could, but we have to start having the conversation now, so we're not suddenly making a decision in January. What would it take for us to have that discussion to see where that would lie? I'm not clear on how the decisions are made, I guess.
Sure.
Is it just within our department, our system, or is it with the conference?
Yeah, that's the discussion Patrick and I have had with following the MPA guidelines, where we have universal masking right now in our school. We feel like it's in our best interest to continue that for athletics and co-curriculars. Certainly open to, if we want to put, I don't know, a date, to revisit this discussion or decision, that's certainly up to you. But I agree, at some point, maybe we do need to move away from that, but where we're outbreak status, I don't know that that's the time right now.
Any other?
I mean, I think we've talked to Dr. Hanner about this. We could certainly, again, in January, if we plan to have a discussion about some metrics in general, maybe it's a good time to bring this into the conversation as well. But
because that's, I mean, right now, is it that you feel because we're in outbreak status? I mean, what's the metric? The metric is based on the recommendation of MPA, right? I mean, that's
correct.
And our doctor.
Correct.
That's where we're going with this. So yeah, so if we could see what, in the same way that you were talking about vaccination just for school in general, if we could talk about, because this I assume would also cover, I think of the kids trying to sing on stage or act or play an instrument, same thing with athletics. What would the metrics be? I mean, maybe we can start having it, maybe at our December meeting, if we could have some information on that. Not saying that would be the time, I don't know, we'll see. But because things are either going to get better after Thanksgiving, I think, because people step away, or maybe it'll get worse, I don't know. But if we could have something, maybe if we're starting out this way, it's one thing, but if we could have the metrics for December, because then maybe we'd have a pathway to people making choices of it's pool testing, or the numbers come down enough, or what do those metrics have to be? Because yeah, I agree with Jamie. It's just the strenuous activity. It's just got to be a way to let them not have to wear a mask at some point here.
Just, I'm trying to imagine this, and it's been a while since I've seen a wrestling match, but if the athletes are mastering a wrestling match and they're moving in a way where someone's mask falls off, how does that work with a match? Is it halted? Is it paused? Do they continue on?
That's a great question. My understanding as of right now is it won't be halted, but it will be paused or stopped the next natural stoppage in the clock. So wrestler goes out of bounds or whatever it might be, and then an adjustment is made to the masking.
Nate, as an old athletic director that was responsible for the site of games, a red flag skyrocket went off when you talked about allowing competitors, fans into your facility. Supposing their school doesn't have a mask requirement and they come bopping down a bath figuring they can just walk in, you're going to have a job implementing our mask rule on people from wherever. And I know you have a police officer at home basketball games and stuff, so you'd have assistance. But have you taken a look at that and how you'd handle it?
Thought a lot about that. Yeah, I guess I'm in the boat that I'd like to give people the benefit of the doubt now, especially after last year, not having spectators really at all. And then certainly be able to scale back if we need to. But it's just going to require, real constant communication with the opposing school's athletic director ahead of time so that they can get the information out that this is what we're requiring of our spectators.
But Nate, I mean,
Sure.
I may be wrong on this, but just because a school doesn't have student athletes mask, they're all spectators, I believe, are required, right?
It's recommended that they're required.
Right. So I think at least the schools that in the conference that the superintendents recommend, the students may not be masked, but the spectators are going to be required to be masked. So it's really about the students, getting used to it, and the fans would be the expectation across the board. That's what's been communicated to us.
And that communication just needs to remain consistent, though, just to make sure that we don't have surprises. Yeah.
Good.
Thanks.
Other questions? Lorna?
Thank you, Nate. I do have quite a few thoughts, but I think the thing that, first of all, I mean, sports are not mandatory, so they are voluntary. So I look at this as that being a distinction by kids having compulsory attendance to school. And even though, I mean, I think there is compelling evidence, just because kids masked up last year, in my view, doesn't mean we just have to do it that way this year. I mean, even the World Health Organization, is not suggesting masking during physical exertion. And if the rest of the world was masking up as we were a year ago, it'd be a much better sell. But, we all know we go out and about, and a large percentage of the public is choosing not to, whether we go to the grocery store or we go to fundraisers or we go to whatever it is, off-school premises. Kids can go pick up basketball at other indoor facilities right across the street from us, so unmasked. So that's what makes this hard. And so if there's any flexibility during exertion, I would really like to entertain that. And again, it's hard to say at this point because I know cases are up, but cases are up because out in the community, people are living the way they want to. And so if we have a game going and kids are masking during physical exertion and someone can go out in the lobby and eat popcorn without a mask, or stand in a long line waiting for Grammy Pammy's lasagna without a mask, that starts to lose some credibility in my mind. So again, I know it's tough right now. Our little kids, the thing for me, as I said in the beginning, is I want our little kids, parents to have that choice. I know some parents are totally in disagreement at the risk to children, and we have the equal, if not more amount of parents that feels COVID is a risk to kids. So, I do want the kids to have a chance to get their vaccinations for those that want it. But I also want to really make sure we look at this masking under exertion as not a false sense of security, I guess. So those are just my comments. I know saying no masking tonight is pretty tough considering what we're facing and all the quarantines we're facing, but those are just my thoughts for the conversation. That was it.
Jen?
Nate, is there any information from the conference, from the Maine Principal Association, that would say why active sports and the proximity or the length of proximity or what is unique about that would help us understand that is an important, masking is an important thing? Do they have some data or some discussions on, how that would help us understand why that would be more important or less important during the actual competition piece? Is equally important as sitting in the stands, I guess. But is there anything they could help us out with that?
No, I don't have anything. The MPA Sports Medicine Committee, I'm sure, I don't want to say I'm sure, but I would be surprised, I guess, if they didn't have those discussions in their own meetings. But I haven't seen any data or documentation come my way around that.
Okay.
I did want to ask, because I just don't have kids that play basketball, sorry. So when does things like, I know practice has started. When do things really ramp up for games? Is it after Christmas or do we come out of the chute soon? Having to deal with the games and the spectators and all that. When does that really ramp up?
It starts after this coming week. So 1 week from tomorrow is our first home exhibition game for girls basketball.
And is it more complicated to say start one way, reevaluate in another way? Can we do that? Or do we need like a blanket vote on that tonight that just sticks for the full season? I'm just brainstorming.
No, it doesn't have to be for the full season, just like the regular mass for students don't have to be, isn't for the whole year, obviously.
So I guess the other question is, so right now we're just talking, right? I know we're talking about, this is strictly athletics, right? That we're talking about right now, not the other co-curricular. But does this also mean during practice indoors, they're all wearing masks?
Correct.
I don't like it. Okay. And most of the games after winter break? I mean, we have some, but December's,
Yeah, I would say most. Yeah.
but most
after.
of the season is still after.
Yeah, both maybe 50% before and 50% after.
Oh, it's that many before. Okay. That's a lot.
Roughly, yeah.
Oh boy. Okay. Other questions? Steve or Anita, any other questions from you? No.
Yeah, I just want to make, just if I can, the question of mass or no mass with sports, to me is, comes down to for me, what I feel the more global concern of ensuring the safety of the health and safety of our kids. I mean, I don't want the kids masked, but do I feel going without a mask is safer or presents a more healthy option than masking at this point? I guess I can't come to that conclusion. We don't want masks, but we also have the obligation to keep the kids, to maintain that healthy environment. And maybe things do change in January or February, in which case we certainly, should have the opportunity to revisit masking generally. But for now, it just seems that, masking and, our current protocols, masking, distancing, other things are really designed to keep the kids as healthy as we can. Obviously, there are we've experienced a large number of cases, nowhere near what some other districts have experienced, and to me that kind of speaks to our still speaks to our success, even though it's kind of muted in some way when you consider the number of cases we've had. But masking still seems to be the healthy option to me at this point. So that's it.
Thanks, Steve. Other comments?
One more question. Do we have a sense of, when we look at our athletes, how many are participating already in pool testing and or are fully vaccinated? Do we know?
I don't know. I have to ask our school nurse about those.
Well, going off what Jamie said, and again, this is, I mean, I'm sure no one can even breathe with all the contact tracing and quarantine calls they've had to make. I can't even imagine it. But it does seem, it's just a struggle. Jamie's right. Like, we're asking to approve the masking. We're trying to incentivize pool testing and or vaccines. And so I'm feeling like that incentive is getting a little lost and the benefits of it. If we believe in the benefits of those things and we don't incorporate it into our sports programs, then I struggle with that too. And it's not that I don't believe the science, but again, in my here, Steve, I think we should be safe. But if the kids mask during a basketball game, but then go out and get something at concessions and eat without a mask, and then go to somebody's house for pizza after the game, like, are we really stopping COVID cases on that night of the game? Maybe. But I think I'd feel better if I kind of knew more about how many athletes are doing one or the other, because we're asking people to not just put a piece of cloth on their face, but to participate in pool testing, which does save you quarantine, so you don't miss the game or practice. And we're asking people to consider getting vaccinated. So, that's a real struggle for me.
So would you say if it were a setup where it was if you were either vaccinated and or part of the pool testing, you wouldn't have to wear a mask during a game? That seems pretty reasonable. I mean, you're not forcing anyone to do it. I mean, and I know you're concerned, Patrick, when you say, well, then will people pull out? Well, we're not saying you have to do it, but you'd have to wear a mask if you didn't.
No,
do
and I
either.
think, we're all making good points here. I think in my conversations with Dr. Hannah, we are seeing students and adults who are vaccinated, still get COVID or transmit COVID. And so, and I think her concern in my conversations, whether we're just, those direct contact sports of, you're right up on somebody. So again, I can, there's all these questions and points are good. I mean, as far as Bowdoin College and USM, the other facilities that we use, you saw some of the backup there as well about what's required at those facilities.
Requiring masking out on the, right? Well, yeah, the colleges are.
Yep.
Okay, I don't think anyone's ready to vote on anything. Let me ask Patrick, what's reasonable to have available for the next meeting? I mean, what would you be doing in this? I mean, because these are all good, like you said, they're all valid points.
I mean, we can dig deeper in pool testing and vaccine numbers. I think then the conversation spreads a little bit to, the close contact. You have a basketball team, what percentage are vaccinated, what percentage are pool tested? And then, are we comfortable with, a blanket, no masking across the board? And then those student athletes being able to, again, Lorna makes the comment about optional, but then those student athletes coming in the next day to school. So again, I mean, we've had some good conversations as a conference and, across the state. And I think people were hoping that the MPA would come out with something that was across the board, and we knew that wasn't going to come.
What do you mean across the board?
Just a requirement.
A requirement versus a recommendation?
Well, yeah.
Right.
One way or the other, either.
Because once again, they're leaving it up to individual school boards like us, just who aren't the profession, we're not the medical professionals to make these decisions. And I guess I don't see a big difference in if you keep it like it is now and they're masked. If they're not pool testing or vaccinated, then they got to quarantine anyway if someone on the team does it because they've been close to them. So again, if we made more of an incentive, and then, yeah, they have to be aware that it's true, as some of us in the room know, you can be vaccinated and still get COVID. And a lot of kids are testing positive and they're the vaccinated ones. So but hopefully it's a less, for the most part, it's not putting you in the hospital, or it's less. I mean, there's going to be a risk no matter what until this thing's over. So, but I'm not sure which outweighs. I'm thinking if you're masked during physical exertion, and I'd say the same thing for the arts, it's making less and less sense to me when we have pool testing, when we have vaccinations, when people just have to be aware there is that risk. And of course, you got kids coming from other teams. That's an issue, other schools. But at some point, and I guess the question is, when is that point? Is it now? Or do we wait another month and then do it? I mean, it's just not making a lot of sense that we just blanket mask during the whole time. I don't know. Go ahead, Jen.
So a question for procedure would be, right now, if we have a sports event and somebody from the other school does end up having COVID on the other team, they have to notify us of that. Is that correct? So we
Yes.
get the same kind of contact tracing. Yeah.
Yep.
I do think that there's something, to me, there's something inherently different about in competition, proximity, time, fluids, and everything that happen differently when you're an athlete next to each other inside, which is different than other types of events and other things that we do in the community. So I can see how there's a higher rate of exposure during that, just because you've got a proximity. And so I would think that if we started out this season and we said we're going to revisit this even every single month, and to say, okay, where are we in one more month? Have we changed in the outbreak status of our schools? Have we, learned anything new about it in terms of the number of athletes, both in our system, in our schools, and also the schools that are coming into us? Do we know anything different about their pool testing, their vaccination rates? Is there anything that could inform our decision any differently? Then that might bring us to another decision on the level of masking. I do think that if we are going to allow food someplace in the building and people to take off their masks, then I would ask the people who are running the concessions to provide staff that are going to be able to monitor that and keep people in a very small area unmasked. I would kind of think the concessions would just add a layer that would be too complicated still at this time, but if it's allowed, I understand that. But I want there to be staff that is specifically designated to make sure people are staying just in that area unmasked. So we're not just having the public walk unmasked through our buildings, because we already say that we don't want that. So I'm going to put that responsibility. And I'm also worried about the ability to control this, having enough staff on hand to control this everywhere in the building, in the restrooms and in the fans. I hope we have staff and ability to do that. Again, I'd like a report on that in a month. So I think I would feel comfortable making a decision now, but it would be under the understanding that we're going to have to go month by this, is about the only way I would feel comfortable doing it now, to really make sure that we are getting more information, that we're having enough metrics and enough information on this every single month, that we can let the public know certainly that we are not just making a blanket statement, and let the public know that we are, trying to navigate it step by step. I don't know if making a decision every month is too burdensome. I would be happy to hear if that's not possible for some reason.
Sorry, I guess we'd have to say that if there's a motion, the motion is what's being proposed by administration right now is one thing, and that's the mask. So we could vote that up or down. Or if someone else has a different motion to do something else, I don't know if people are ready for that, or if they need more information, then that would be another option. Go ahead, Lauren.
I would be, not having or knowing. Well, let me just ask another question. So another team comes, somebody on that team has COVID. They need to let us know, say a basketball team. We have to, I say we, our nursing staff and such still has to go through and figure out who on our team has to quarantine or not, right?
Yep.
That has to happen regardless. So, because I always think about who's this going to put out to enforce this? Who's going to have extra work to enforce this? But it sounds to me like that's already built into the system anyway.
Correct. Yep.
All right. So those incentives, it's very much an incentive to, regardless if you play basketball or not, if you don't want to be out and miss school or whatever it is you do, you can not be out by getting pool tested or vaccinated. So, right. But I feel on what I observe in the world, our world, even though I know this is global, and thank goodness we don't live in Austria going in lockdown again. When I go out, I don't know that schools, it used to be, I think, one of the safest environments, but all of these kids are going to leave the basketball game and go hang out. And so I just don't know that I can confidently say that we're saving a bunch of cases when we're just asking for masking during a basketball game. I don't know. And again, we don't know that information, but we don't have metrics in place right now. But one thing we do know is that the little kids aren't fully vaccinated yet. And so I would be comfortable voting on it saying as of after Christmas, like 2 weeks after Christmas, they come off during play. But I still feel like the only thing we know is that the little kids are just getting the first shot for those that are deciding to. So I would be willing to make that decision rather than go month to month, because even if we go month to month, what's our measure? We don't have one.
Well, if you're saying that you would consider, once we know, so I guess by what, end of December, those younger ones who wanted it, families who wanted that, most of them would be vaccinated. It sounds to me like it would be get as much information as we can so we can have a better discussion of this on our December meeting, because that would be the 20th. Yeah. And so we could at that point see if numbers have come down, if maybe get some more metrics. I would also say, just so it's across the board during that meeting, also it would be not just athletics, but any co-curricular, you're on stage, you're in band, what does it take? Maybe they're equal, maybe they're not, but I guess it would be, let's get what information we can about all those events. And we could have a discussion about, okay, here's where we're at. Here's why we think this is safe or this isn't. We'll have more information in front of us. And we could also say, I'm assuming that's just during play. There's a whole other discussion about practice, but which is we're doing every day. Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's the same. But I just don't feel like I have all the information yet. And I don't know. And you're right. By that point, then anyone who's really wanted to be vaccinated would have the opportunity. Is that kind of where you were headed?
Well, yeah, that's the only one known we know is that the little kids.
Right.
We
are
have
not
that
fully
5
vaccinated.
week, we have that 5 weeks.
Yep.
So start the season, as much as I am not happy with it.
No, we
start the season with the masks as recommended.
Okay.
But after Christmas break, I'd really like a discussion of them coming off.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We do it, but the discussion should be before Christmas break, and maybe see
the
if
discussion's
right. So what I'm saying
No, I
is
see
we
what
would
you're
have the
saying.
discussion. So if our next meeting is the 20th, we have some more metrics from administration about where we're at. We'll see where we are, and maybe it'll be obvious, maybe it won't, but we can make some decision at that point, at least going forward. Does that seem reasonable?
Yep. That's what I was thinking.
Okay. So do I want it? Well, then I guess I need a motion.
Make a motion to approve the sports plan as presented. That's a horrible motion.
Until
Until December.
Until December. Well,
we'll
there's a
revisit in
specific
December. Somebody else make the motion, because I cannot say what I want to say. Jamie.
So I move to approve the recommendations for the winter athletics as recommended by administration, revisiting it at the next school board meeting to see if there's a way we could make modifications.
Sounds good. Okay. And she'll second. Okay, so motion by Jamie, second by Lorna. Any further discussion on the motion? Yeah, go
Just one more thought, because I always like to hear from those who are impacted by this. I would love to maybe, not that I want to add yet another thing to your plate, because I know you're all very busy, but would love to have a survey of student athletes asking them about their feeling of getting a vaccine, or more specifically, participating in pooled testing in an effort to help us eliminate the masks at some point.
Okay, would you like that by the next school board meeting? Okay, is that the
Yeah.
20th?
That's the 20th, yeah. Okay. Any other discussion before we vote on the motion? Okay. So all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Okay. So it passes, and yeah, any of the metrics, any information you can get on their, some kind of survey on their awareness of the risk involved, but that if pool testing, vaccination, and any numbers you can get us as to who's already in it would be helpful.
Okay.
That'll just be a lot easier, and then we'll certainly have a lot of other stats going forward. And I would ask too that if it's reasonable that we can, I know there's not as much going on, but reasonable to get some information on other co-curricular. So we're not doing that 10 minutes before the play in the spring or something. Okay, great. Thank you, Nate.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay. Are we on time? We're okay. So where are we at? 11.2? Is that what you have? So this is the first reading of board policies, no action right now. Need my glasses for this. CB school, the school superintendent, CBC, the duties of superintendent. Are there any questions on either of those right now? Anything else you think should be in there that you want to make Patrick do? No? Okay. Then we'll save that for next time, which we'll vote on it. Our next meeting, regular board meeting, as we just said several times, will be Monday, December 20th here at 6 o'clock. We already know some of what will be on that agenda. And now I think we're going to move into, we need to move into executive session. What do I have to read this, right? Pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056C to discuss disposition of property. Can I have vote to do that? Okay. All right. All in favor of executive session?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
All right. So we fortunately get to stay here to do that this time. We don't have to move.
We're just gonna have to pause.
Okay, that's fine.
to have
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
Jamie and switch some things around.
Yeah, we won't start talking until you tell me to, Patrick. We're good. Thank you, everybody. I don't know about that. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you need to record this? Okay, so we've just come out of executive session and I would like a motion to adjourn. By Lorna, Bill, second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thanks, Steve. All right, so we are adjourned. Thank you all for all your efforts.